City.
Actually, that's spot on.
It is spot on.
All the competition that try to compete.
Everything is spot on.
Yesterday, me and Jamar was on, and Jamar is actually part of these draft picks today. The top 10 list, right? Let's start back from there. We saw Trevor Lawrence go first, Justin Fields go second. Trey Lance went at number 3, picked by Mia. John, when you looked at that top 10 list, what did you see? What did you think? Was you surprised that somebody may have failed that you would have thought would have been selected earlier on?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me when you look at the top 10 was that Zach Wilson sliding all the way to 9 and the Broncos not even having to trade up to get a quarterback. Obviously, I think that would be best case scenario for them. But I think we've seen kind of all the stories and everything about how the Jets are enamored with Zach Wilson. Everybody's saying the draft starts at 3. So I really was surprised to see in the mock draft that he has slipped all the way to 9. I think that he's a lock to go number 2. And even if he doesn't go number 2, I think San Francisco jumps on him at 3. I think he's the consensus number 2 quarterback in the draft. So if that was anything that stood out to me, it was him sliding all the way to 9, although that might in Elway, who've had trouble securing a quarterback since Peyton Manning.
Well, probably best scenario for the Cowboys too, and Wayne picked them to draft Patrick Surtain, and we know that the Broncos and Panthers may be in the running for a cornerback at 8 and 9. The biggest thing to me I thought was a fair pick at the time was number 4, Kyle Pitts to the Atlanta Falcons. It just made so much sense to me, and we know for them as a team that's probably struggled on the defensive end, but offensive firepower is their sword, and they're going to live by it. They're going to die by that too. And I think Matty Ice could use another weapon if they don't go quarterback. And obviously, we saw a guy like Zach Wilson, who could possibly next Friday be an Atlanta Falcon at the end of that day. But definitely a lot of great picks. So let's get started. Let's get into the media while we're here day 2. John, pick number 11, the New York Giants. Let's talk about it, right? A team that did they exceed expectations? Maybe did Daniel Jones make the leap everyone thought he was going to make? No. But here the Giants are, and they managed to finish second in the whole NFC East division. What do you foresee for this team? Who should they possibly go for before we actually bring Jamar on and make the pick for at number 11?
Yes, I think it's hard to say that they exceeded expectations last year when nobody in the division had a winning record. But I think what we saw from Joe Judge was a team that played hard every week. You saw a team that was able to beat the Seattle Seahawks, although it was at the second half of the season when they were sliding with Colt McCoy at quarterback. But like I said, you just saw a team that played really sound, really well on defense. And on offense, they were able to make plays that was still limited. Daniel Jones still suffered from turnovers, but a team that looks like they're on the rise. When I look at what they should do at this 11th pick, I did think originally that they should go wide receiver, but I think there's great value on the board. They still can use defense, specifically at the linebacker position. You have Blake Martinez, who had a great year last year, leaving Green Bay and kind of holding down the middle. So I think you get one of the best athletes and playmakers in this draft, arguably the best defensive player in this draft. Michael Parsons, put him next to him, Blake Martinez at that weak side linebacker spot. He can do a little bit of everything. He can play the mic or the wheel. He can definitely rush the passer. Like I said, he's a freak athlete. I think he ran a 4.39. So you just add him to that defense. You got playmakers on all 3 levels with James Bradbury and I was about to say Julius Peppers. What's his name? Peppers. Jabril Peppers on the back end. Blake Martinez. You add Michael Parsons. A lot of speed and playmaking to that defense. And then, of course, in the front, you got Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. So I think you continue to add to that defense. Like I said, great value at the 11th position and wreak havoc in that NFC East.
Well, I expect, not only for Jamar possibly, but even next week for the actual NFL draft. Maybe if Jalen Waddle does manage to slide this far, perhaps the Giants take a chance on a receiver like him. Yes, he's coming off injury, but we know the guy can still fly. We know the guy was the guy at Alabama before he was hurt and Devonta Smith stepped in, or possibly J.C. Horn. They may have the depth on the backfield in their secondary, but it doesn't hurt to add a physical guy who many think is better than Sertan, or at least his ceiling is higher. And I know you, for one, John, you told me earlier in the group chat, J.C. Horn is always better with his shirt off. So
Yeah.
obviously we expect Sertan to be first off the board as far as the cornerback position. But let's jump right into our 11th pick, as Jamar Root will bring us in to who the New York Giants will select in 2021 NFL Draft. Jamar,
With the 11th pick, the New York Giants select Elijah Vera Tucker. Now, I think this is a surprise to two of our hosts. They said they needed maybe a receiver or they needed a linebacker. I believe this is where you can really protect Daniel Jones. You have a plug and play player at the guard position that they need. They need to protect him. Obviously, they went out and got Kenny Galladay. So that means you're investing in the quarterback that you have right now. And it also shows that you don't need a Jalen Waddle right now because you picked up the receiver. So I think Elijah Vera Tucker is the right pick right here. Obviously, there's some other options, but I think he sure up that offensive line.
John, well, Daniel Jones is certainly using an offensive lineman, right? Especially for a guy who we know has a lot of fumble issues, who was sacked a lot last season. How do you feel about Elijah Vera Tucker being selected at 11?
Yeah, I definitely think they do need offensive line help, and so it's a good pick in that regard. But I just think from a value standpoint, when you're at 11, you're still kind of trying to hit a home run. And when the player is there available that can hit that home run, but also as a need, like I said in Micah Parsons, they have a need at linebacker. I would have went that way, but like you said, you have an investment in Daniel Jones, and so O lineman isn't a bad pick. I just think once you had Rashawn Slater and Penei Sewell go off the board, the premier offensive lineman at 11, you get a premier, arguably the best defensive player in the draft, than the third best offensive lineman. So I think you just got better value and better upside with Micah Parsons, but not a bad pick because you do need to protect Daniel Jones.
Well, we know this is the part of the draft where teams can tend to reach, right? Would expect them to, where there's a guy that kind of falls, or we're like, oh, he may have got drafted too high. We can kind of go back. You say it all the time. CeeDee Lamb followed the 17. Teams going to get Henry Ruggs much earlier than we expected them to in the Raiders. So I don't think it's bad, but if you are looking to invest in stock into the offensive line, knowing what you've already done for the defense side of the ball, Saquon Barkley does return. You know what you got at the receiver position now. Then you just kind of go and you take it and you grow and get Elijah Vera Tucker, and you run the ball, pass, block, and keep it moving. Let's go on to 12. Fly, Eagles, fly. The city of brotherly love needs a pick, John. The Eagles can go a various ways. We can say the guys that started to fall at this point, J.C. Horn, which they may be in the running for a cornerback. There's still Jalen Waddle out there on the board, who if Jalen Hurts is supposed to be the guy, I know there are small rumors out there that the Eagles are looking forward to possibly getting Deshaun Watson from the Texans. Granted that all the allegations with him aren't going to be a thing in the near future. What do the Eagles need to do? This is a team that they thought they were going to really have it together last season with Carson Wentz, and they end up letting this guy go. And the team thinks that they found a spark in Jalen Hurts and what he could bring to that offense. What do you think the Eagles should do at 12?
Well, you look at a player, like you said, that's sliding. Obviously I talked about Micah Parsons with the Giants. I think he feels a huge need for the Philadelphia Eagles as well if they want to go that route. Two other players I'm looking at for them, Jalen Waddle. He's kind of the least talked about because he got hurt this year of the top receivers, but still a player that can blow it open on any play, 4.2 speed. We saw what he was able to do at Alabama. And so I think, if you're, whether it's Jalen Hurts or whoever's going to play quarterback, you want to get that type of weapon. But they did draft a receiver in the first round last year with Jalen Reagor. So that may not be an option. Another player, like you said, you mentioned, is J.C. Horn. The Eagles have struggled in the secondary for some long time. They brought in Anthony Harris this year to shore up that safety spot, the addition of Darius Slay a year ago. So you get J.C. Horn and put another, blue chip cornerback prospect on the other side of him and really play some good defense in Philadelphia, take the pressure off Jalen Hurts. So those are three players I could see them taking with this spot here at number 12.
Well, John thinks there's certainly a lot of good picks, everyone. Let's bring on Roderick McLean of My Point Exactly's very own to give us who the Philadelphia Eagles should select with the 12th pick in the NFL draft. Rod, take it away, my friend.
With the 12th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select J.C. Horn. That man is a dog. When you want to talk about somebody that can lock down one side of the defensive side, he is the corner. He is the key. Yes, the Eagles need to work on more weapons offensively, especially with the so-called quarterback duel between Falco and Hurts. But when you have a play like this dropping all the way down below, you got to take him. He's a top 10 pick.
Well, love it, Rod, love it. Jonathan, we're high on J.C. Horn. I'm high on J.C. Horn and what he could bring. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles are certainly high on the selecting him as the 12th pick in this draft. You did have him as just second best corner. Is this the guy? Is this a great choice?
Yeah, I think this is a good pick for them. When you look at the NFC East and what you have to go against, you got the Cowboys with Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. You got the Washington football team with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. And then you got the Giants with Darius Slayton and Kenny Galladay. So you have to be able to lock up in that division. So like I said, you put J.C. Horn, who's really sticky in man coverage. He's really physical. He's tough. He has that competitive edge. You know, you could put him up out there on the other side of Darius Slay and really lock down these, top offenses in the NFC East. So I think this is a great pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. They get some great play on the back end to match that defensive line. And like I said, you play good defense, take pressure off the offense, and take pressure off a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I really like this pick.
Definitely loving this pick as well. I think the Eagles definitely going to get them a solid corner. I also would love for the Cowboys to possibly select J.C. Horn at number 10. But hey, we already got our guy in Patrick Surtain. But obviously, you get a guy that's really up in the receiver's face and really put the receiver in the chokehold. We can take it back to when he guarded Seth Williams, and then obviously there was an interview fairly recently with Kyle Pitts, and he said that the toughest corner that he had to face was J.C. Horn. So the Eagles are definitely, especially, it's key for this team at a time when they really selected a slew of corners, John. We're talking about what I want to say is Sidney Jones and those guys they may have drafted a couple of years back, very high in the second and third round. It didn't necessarily pan out for them. They went and got Ronald Darby for a while, and then that didn't necessarily work out a long time. And obviously, we know what big play Slay can definitely bring to the table, but he's kind of faltering off a little bit after a subpar season. So I think J.C. Horn can definitely turn some things around. Let's move on to pick 13, John. The L.A. Chargers, a team that I think a lot of us actually love. Obviously, we know what they did at the fell off the way. We know what Joe Bosa and those guys can really bring to the table. They had a couple injuries last year. How do you foresee the Chargers bouncing back in the season, and not only that, in this draft as well?
Yeah, so I mean, the Chargers are a good team that have a lot of talent on offense, obviously, and defense. We talk about one of the premier defenders in the league, in Joey Bosa. I think it's tough to say, thus far, because obviously the Chiefs are the class of the division, and I think the Broncos are a team that really are a quarterback away. They have a lot of talent, and then you have the Las Vegas Raiders, who under John Gruden, the talent management there has been a little shaky, but they've been able to win games. So I think they may be second in the division, a playoff team. I don't know. But I think there's definitely a team on the rise. As far as the pick here, this one's kind of tricky. I could see maybe them trading back with New England if New England wants to come up and snatch Mac Jones, who's still on the board at this point. This is probably, that position that they would be able to trade into. But if they're going to stay on the board, I think they continue to bolster that O-line and take Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech. I think that probably still is a reach at this point, but I just don't see any other position they go for right now that's going to come in and make the impact that he can. He could shore up that left tackle spot, continue to protect their investment in Justin Herbert. So that's where I would go right here. Maybe they can take something on the defense, but I probably would go O-line right here. I think the Giants taking Vera Tucker kind of put a dent in this pick for the Chargers.
I think it busts this draft kind of open because you got a bunch of guys who are sliding now. Again, Waddle is still out there on the board, which I'm so surprised at right now, and I think it could be a legit hit here for the LA Chargers. Dez Ewell is in the mix with us, everyone. Y'all know him, y'all love him the most. He's here to make 13th pick for the LA Chargers. Dez, it's all yours. Take it.
With the 13th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle, Virginia Tech. So really looking into this, I originally was going to go defense with this one. I was actually going to go defense with this one because they definitely need a safety out there. And Staley, head coach Brandon Staley really likes to run 3 safety positions. So I thought Morrick here, but you got a franchise QB in Justin Herbert. You got to protect him. We kind of saw what happened with the Bengals with excuse me, blank on his name just now, but the Bengals quarterback. Thank you. So you don't want to have that especially with Herbert being the surprise that he was. You definitely want to protect him at the offensive line position. So yeah, kind of like you were saying earlier, JD, about the old that left tackle spot. I mean, Christian Darrisaw was actually really listed as number 2 O lineman for a while until you know how draft time things starts changing. But so Darrisaw, like, it's not really a reach here, especially when you need that O line spot.
Love the pick, Christian Darrisaw to the LA Chargers. Again, John, this is the first guy that you hit on. Justin Herbert gets his guy at that left tackle position, someone who we know is going to be able to cover his blind side. Justin Herbert is a guy who we really expect to be able to make this significant jump in year 2. He was really, really good last year, really in there running for Rookie of the Year. I mean, it's so much things that he brings to the table, and so much that the LA Chargers can actually afford to spend this first round pick on a lineman. And, defense is heavy. Defense is heavy, especially in this second round. Love the pick and definitely love Dez and where he's going with this. Let's take it to number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. And we can speak all day on probably what this team needs to do. They had a whole revamp last year, letting go of a couple key guys. Obviously, Adam Thielen is still there. Consensus is actually up on what Kirk Cousins and the type of guy that he is. They got Justin Jefferson, though. He was the highlight of their draft last year. And John, you took a couple of moments earlier today to laugh at the Philadelphia Eagles for missing out on this guy last year. If the Minnesota Vikings got it right last year, the question is, will they get it right again? What do you think?
So this is a tough one because I think this is another team that probably would have liked to take an O lineman. But if I'm going to go right here, there's been some rumblings of Danielle Hunter in Minnesota being unhappy. They've struggled to keep a consistent pass rush even with Danielle Hunter and his production. So I think even though Micah Parsons is still on the board and, he'd be a great pick for all of these teams, I'm going to go with the edge rusher right here. Now, this isn't a strong edge draft. It's kind of a take your pick depending on what you like. We've seen definitely a lot of the edges in this draft are, physical specimens, but don't really have the production you would like to see in college. So I'm going to go with the most skilled pass rusher that probably also has the biggest concern, and that's Jalen Phillips for Miami. I think that he's the best natural pass rusher in the draft. And when I look at that, I'm going for, production and tools over upside. I know the medicals are concerning, but I think if he checks out and he can stay on the field, I think Jalen Phillips will definitely has the potential to be a perennial Pro Bowler at that DN spot, either on the other side of Danielle Hunter or just as the star pass rusher in Minnesota. So that's where I'm going with this pick. I know that may be a little early, a little controversial, but I'm going for Jalen Phillips and hoping those medicals work out in Minnesota.
It's a bit early, but I like it. I can see a guy like Kwity Paye possibly going here as well. Obviously, a guy with a lot of tangibles. A Michigan defensive end, we know how we ultimately feel about them. Taco Charlton came out a couple years ago, and it was really mad when he really hit the league. The thing about defensive ends is if we're not selecting them in the top 10, we're looking at this point in the middle of the rounds down to the second. These are guys who are almost your project starters, guys who are going to need another year of experience in the NFL. Because and much like all defensive ends, they need time. But I tell you, a man who has the most time is that man, my man Abdul Iskandari. That man Dooley giving us the 14th pick in the draft. Abdul, floor is yours.
Absolutely, my man. With the 14th pick of the 2021 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Jalen Waddle from the University of Alabama. And let me tell you why I got this pick. First of all, I had Tucker. Going back to how John said they needed an own lineman, but I had to switch it up to Jalen Waddle because why not add to that offense? With having Jefferson, you got Thielen, why not have somebody in the slot that can take over? You know what I mean? So you add one more receiver to the offense to make the offense even more special than it already is, So I was going to go with Tucker to defend Kirk Cousins' backside. Okay, but now I'm going with the receiver Jalen Waddle, one of Nick Saban's Crimson Tide's men. And I got good things coming out of the man. Okay,
John, we're mixing a little bit of that cowboy suit, man. It's around the same time when we got CD Lamb last year. They get Jalen Waddle, they get another guy to stick at the slot receiver next to Justin Simmons and Thielen, and Kirk Cousins gets another tool in his toolbox, along with that dynamic running back we know they got back there. Do you love the pick? Is the question.
I love my man Abdul, but I can't get with the picks. And I think if you look at you hit gold last year with your first round pick in Justin Jefferson, who had 1,400 receiving yards. You already have Adam Thielen on the other side of him, plus Dalvin Cook in the backfield, a top, 3 to 5 running back in the NFL. And we're talking about Kirk Cousins. So how much can he really take advantage of Jalen Waddle's speed anyway? I think you had to, either go O-line, which was tough because, 4 of the top O-linemen had already went, or you continue to add to that defense, like I said, pass rush or even Minnesota at all. I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think this is a good pick for Minnesota right now.
Why do we hate the sexy pick, John? It's like we always say it ain't always. Remember, you gotta remember, and I'm gonna keep saying it. And we talking about it 10 if the Cowboys it was a cow pick. With Jesse Holly, DallasCowboys.com, Jesse Holly appeared on SOS Discussions last week to talk about that, and he said if you're able to put up 50 points or 100 points, you go put up 50 or 100 points, you go draft a cow pick. So I think for the Vikings, they may have a little bit of that same thing that they can do with Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with the sexy pick if the sexy pick is also a need, or I have faith that it'll be utilized in the right way. But I just don't know if Jalen Waddle, will come in and transform the Minnesota Vikings offense. I think, like I said, you hit gold last year with Justin Jefferson. You already have Adam Thielen. You just continue to build on that. You can find receivers in free agency or later in the draft that can give you great value on top of what you already had. But at the 14th pick, you're looking for somebody to come in and start and make a difference right away. And Jalen Waddle, I don't think he does that based on what the Minnesota Vikings need.
Let's take it to the 15th pick. John, you might remember the evil empire. They isn't so evil anymore because they're led by just Bill Belichick and Cam Newton. The season that they had was a bit underwhelming, which I think a lot of NFL fans may have been happy about since the Patriots were no longer of actual relevancy. There's a lot of different things that they can do. Now that Jalen Waddle probably would have made much more sense here, even though now that I'm thinking about it, at this 15th pick being selected, that Cam Newton can actually get a weapon, because that was a lot of the concern last year, was that he did not have that. But defense, we can go back defense, perhaps Caleb Fairley, given that their top cornerback may be on his way out the door fairly soon. What do you see with this New England Patriots team? What do they need to do, and what do they need to do to get better?
I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I think this pick is fairly obvious. This might be the most obvious pick since the first pick in the draft. They got to take Mac Jones here. I think, when you look at Cam Newton, yes, he's the starter for this year. He's the quarterback for this year, but he's on a 1-year deal. And nothing he's done thus far in New England or really over the last 3 years has showed us that he's a long-term option. He's more of a bridge option at this point. I think you got to go with Mac Jones here. You're getting him for great value at 15, the way he's been talked about for the last month, like he was the second or third best quarterback in the draft. So you have to take him. You have him under control for the next 5 years at a relatively cheap option. You let him sit behind Cam this year, and he's your quarterback of the future. You got to go Mac Jones here.
So let's take a minute to talk about Mac Jones, right? And what he did at Alabama. Me and you especially, because we argue with Quentin. Shout out to Quentin. I know he's watching this show right now because he wished his guy would have got taken yesterday. We look at a guy, and one thing that you noted that he hadn't struggled. Now, obviously, sitting behind Cam, you get a year, you don't have to touch, still bearing that Cam doesn't do anything egregious to get himself benched. When I look at a guy that I hadn't seen come back from 2 touchdowns, I hadn't seen have to come back from a 3-interception game. I hadn't seen what he can do when Najee Harris is running for 100 yards. What happens when the cornerback is up in Devontae Harris or Jalen Waddle's face? How did Mac Jones get this high? Is probably the question that I should be asking right now.
Yeah, I think it's just the shift that we've seen in the league where quarterbacks are of the utmost importance. We're talking about 5, they're even talking about some quarterbacks slipping into the back end. The quarterback from Stanford or Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, but if you're talking about 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, that's a lot. And so I think that just quarterbacks at a premium now. The need for them to shift to the passing league we have is why quarterbacks are of the utmost importance. And then I think you just look at what Mac Jones did. I think he broke the record in college football for QBR this year. He had a 777 completion percentage, which is insane. And so he had a great year. He was throwing to the Heisman winner. He was a Heisman finalist himself, or I think he was in the top 5. So he had a great year. And I think that, people argue, was it the talent he was throwing to, or was it Mac Jones? But if you look at the tape, he had a great year, and he showed a lot on tape that you would like to see from an NFL quarterback.
Well, let's tap in with Roderick McLean right now, here to give the New England Patriots pick at number 15. Rod, it's all you, my friend.
This was a tough one because I wasn't going to go O-line, but obviously the O-line that I wanted is gone. But with this pick, the Patriots will be selecting Mac Jones. And I'm not really strong on this pick. I'm not a believer in him, but I do believe he has a lot of potential. And to me, it's just potential so far. But I do believe what Jonathan said. Let him be behind Cam for a year or two and let him gain knowledge from him. I think that's a great pick. And I think eventually in the longer run, in the future, he'll be a great system quarterback for that system with Bill Belichick and them.
Well, John, there you have it. It is definitely Mac Jones, quarterback out of Clemson. Again, we kind of spoke a little negatively of him too. But again, you think it's best that he is having that time to sit behind Cam Newton. Obviously, the greatest thing about it is he has Bill Belichick right there to his side.
Yeah, and Josh McDaniels, who is one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. I think it's a perfect landing spot for both. Mac Jones, when you look at the system he comes from in Alabama, the way that program is ran by Nick Saban, you have a lot of the same principles with Bill Belichick. And, Mac Jones, he's going to come in the same way Tom Brady did, do what's asked of him, not do too much, not play outside of the offense, do what's asked of him. And I think he's a perfect fit on the field and in that culture.
It gets hot in Arizona, John, and what a hot team this was last year, but I think they kind of got cold towards the end. We can speak on the job that Cliff Kingsbury, the only coach I can ever say that failed up into the NFL, and what he did, obviously with that team, D-Hop, and that offense that they were able to run. When I look at a team like this, I'm asking, what do they have to continue to do to keep pace in the NFC West that is obviously stacked when you have Seattle Seahawks, the St. Louis Rams, the LA Rams, and what they're able to do. Obviously, they just got a new quarterback in on top of my head, Matthew Stafford. And the question is, where do they go with the Arizona Cardinals? And when I look at this team, and I think possibly, is it a reach if we go and get Najee Harris right now? What does this team not need to have in a running game? Why wouldn't they go for Najee Harris this early?
I definitely think that's a reach. And I love Najee Harris as a player and a prospect, but I just think when you've seen what you're able to get from the running back position in various places these days, I think taking a running back this early just, kind of is a reach, especially for the Arizona Cardinals, who aren't a run-heavy team to begin with. So I think, you saw last year an undrafted running back in James Robinson, had over 1,000 yards. So I definitely don't think that's the pick right here. This is definitely a tough one because they have a lot of talent, and I think that they've done a good job of stockpiling that talent. If you really look kind of all over the roster, they've done a good job of putting talent all over the field and all levels.
And I will say one thing that they could definitely be in the running for is a cornerback here. We know that Caleb Fairley is definitely still on the board, and then they got Patrick Peterson to buy in for at least one more year, possibly because Des Ewell is going to return to give us his pick in just a couple moments. I think a guy like Caleb Fairley would be really good here. You got a speed guy, much like Patrick Peterson was when he first came into the NFL, a guy that can really play off ball if he needs to. He could play in zone. He could play some man. He has the ability. He's a ball hawk nonetheless. But right now we're going to let Des Ewell take it away. Des, give us the pick for the Arizona Cardinals.
The 16th pick, the Arizona Cardinals are going to go Caleb Farley at cornerback. Now, this is a situation where, like you said, it is a little tough situation to go here. Which way do we need to advance? What's going to help us, especially, with their coach being an offensive-minded coach and Cliff Kingsbury, he's done what he needs to do offensively to get weapons on the field. Now it's about stopping the rest of the NFC West, where you have receivers like DK Metcalf. You got Lockett out there. The Rams have plenty of receivers. I mean, it's just so much out there. Someone has to match up with those receivers. So, Russell Wilson and the Seahawks can be slowed down, specifically who the big dog is in that division. Also, what's really important about this is, of course, when you draft for the future. So with the draft for the future, both their outside corners are on 1-year deals, both of them. So at some point, someone, I highly doubt they're resigning both of them. So Farley comes in, probably the best, cover corner in this draft. And he should be there for, however long they need him to be over time, as long as he performs. So, yeah, Caleb Farley is definitely the move for me. And I don't really think it was that hard of a pick. It made sense, especially with the division they're in.
Love that pick, Dez. John, I think we could both agree that corner is definitely a way to go. One thing I want to get from you, do we feel like is there something where we are, or should the teams be concerned over Caleb Farley's recent surgery over his back injury?
Well, one thing I will say, I think corner is a great pick there, and you could have went Caleb Farley, obviously, for the upside and just the playmaking, or you could have went Greg Newsome there as well from Northwestern. I probably would have went Micah Parsons just because at this point, he's clearly the best player on the board. And I think both corners have some concerns where Micah Parsons, is, like I said, arguably the best defensive player on the board. And so you just add him to what they've already built in Arizona and just continue to wreak havoc. But I think with Caleb Farley, I think the medicals are concerning. The back, every position needs, the back is very fundamental.
Need the back,
football.
yeah.
And so, I think it's a concern, but I think they're, going to trust the medicals. They said he was good in Indy, trust the tape, and like Des said, come in and kind of be the cornerback of the future. And you're planning for some other members in that secondary to leave. So I think it's a good pick. Like I said, I would have went Micah Parsons, best player on the board. Continue to add to that defense, but this is a good pick for them, shore up that back end.
Well, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and it is the Las Vegas Raiders that are here at the 17th pick in this 2021 NFL draft. Where do I even start with this team? I think when we look at give me the head coach, John. It's on the tip of my tongue.
John Gruden.
Like John Gruden and his 10-year extension that he got to make this team a playoff team. We're looking at we're in year 4 now, if I'm correct, and this team has yet to taste a playoff game. Michael Parsons could make a lot of sense here right now. Possibly another lineman, or maybe you were looking at somebody. Maybe there's a receiver out there that they're able to get. I like Carlos Basham here as an edge rusher that they could probably use. Again, what you said, Greg Newsome, it wouldn't hurt for them to get a cornerback, though. I think it would be relatively high for him to go off the board at this point. What do you see about the Las Vegas Raiders doing? What does John Gruden need to do to get this team, first of all, a perennial Pro Bowler into the playoffs?
Well, I think the Raiders are in a great spot here to get some defensive help. Can I get $1 every time I say Michael Parsons' name? Michael Parsons is obviously still on the board. He could come in right away and be an impact player for them. But I think if you're looking, also they need an edge rusher. None of the edge rushers have been taken up until this point. And so you still have Jalen Phillips on, like I said, I think is the best pure pass rusher in the draft. He just has some concerning medicals. You could take him here, which really isn't a reach at this point because of his boom or bust nature. But also, if you want, kind of the athletic, physical players without the maybe without some of the production, but also without the injury concerns that Jalen Phillips has. You have Kwity Paye from Michigan. You have Aziz.
And I like Christian Barmore too.
Yeah, Christian Barmore on the inside. You got Aziz Ojulari from Georgia. So it's a lot of good edge prospects on the board right now. So I would go Michael Parsons, or I would get one of those top edge rushers.
Well, the root of all things starts with Jamar, and Jamar is going to come on and give us the pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. Jamar Root, the floor is yours, my friend. Take it away.
The Las Vegas Raiders select with this pick Micah Parsons. I believe they need everything defense. You could look at just about every position on the defensive side of the ball. I wanted to go Merrick here to get them a good captain for the team, but you get a guy like Parsons who can really do a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? When you got a defense that really needs every single position, you get the guy with the most upside, the guy that's falling back. You're looking at this position in the draft, there's going to be somebody that falls, and that's Parsons. It's still a little unpredictable with John Gruden at the helm. I wanted to pick something crazy because he's never going to give you the predictable draft pick, but I think it's so obvious that you have to pick Micah Parsons here.
John, we want to look at this Michael Parsons pick. The first question is, why did it take him so long to come off the board at this pick at 17?
I'm not sure. I think that, when you look at it kind of like linebacker, it's a tough position to draft nowadays, with all of these hybrid defenses and them playing so much in these sub packages.
Got to be behind there, all Big Sky right guard. They do hand it off, run that way, but they're stopped. And Penn State gets the stop.
Falling. Low snap. Pickett hands to Davis, but immediate penetration.
Linemen started to go, and then you had a run of cornerbacks, and then, with Mac Jones going. But I think to the Las Vegas Raiders, it doesn't matter, right? As long as they get their guy this late. And Micah Parsons at 18, that's a steal based on what he was able to do in college and the measurables. And so, it's just one of those situations. Like you said, last year the Cowboys get CeeDee Lamb at 17. This year the Las Vegas Raiders, they get Micah Parsons at 18.
And what biggest thing that I love about him, his ability to rush off the edge and play side to side, east to west. I mean, this guy literally tracks running backs down in the backfield. You see the highlights right here, and he's just able to be a force. You need the Las Vegas Raiders need someone who's going to continue to be able to get into that backfield. They struggled a little bit across that front seven and on that defensive line. And you got a guy who can come in from that linebacker spot, who can cover as well, and is able to get pressure on for it and can get sacks. And I know he's definitely a type of guy that John Gruden would love. We love the pick of Michael Parsons. So definitely well done on that, Rod. Let's go to our 18th pick, the Miami Dolphins. Yesterday they were pick. They got the Smith. Now we move to Miami. 2 weeks that they were able to get within this first round. You go offense once, John. Where do you go the second time? You go edge rusher. You're talking about Jalen Phillips is still out there on the board. There's Carlos Basham. Do they need a running back? There's Travis Etienne. Is that too high? Kadarius Toney at receiver. What do you see the Dolphins doing at the pick?
Yeah. So this is definitely a place where they could go a lot of different places as well. I think they took, was it Devontae Smith earlier in the draft in the mock? So okay. Well, so I think with this pick right here, if I'm the Miami Dolphins, they already have, a great secondary, great defense. When you look at Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, what they're able to do on the back end. So I think you come and you shore up that safety spot and you get Trayvon Moore from TCU. I think he can do a little bit of everything. He maybe doesn't do anything elite, but he can do a little bit of everything in that safety spot. So you put him back there with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, and you continue to be tough on offenses. And like I said, what's the best thing for a young quarterback is a running game and a strong defense. You continue to build up that defense, which is the strength of the team, and allow Tua to manage games on offense and not lose games for you. So I would go Trayvon Moore right here and get you a safety to shore up that back end.
Well, it's that man's time again. That man Dooley is about to come back and get the 18th pick in this 2011 SOS mock draft. Abdul, take it away, my friend. The floor is yours. Who do the Miami Dolphins get?
Absolutely. With the 2021 NFL Draft, Miami Dolphins select Jeremiah Coroma out of Notre Dame University, linebacker. I felt they had to go defense. Tua and the offense to kind of work itself out. The defense, to me, is the strong point of the Miami Dolphins right now. And they have to take advantage and they have to build this defense up. So who better to pick than Jeremiah Coroma, which he'll still be
here, Mike,
late in the draft, because obviously linebackers are being taken early, not in our draft at least. Who knows what the real world draft has to offer, right? But in our draft, I'd have to go with this kid because he's one of the best defensive players still available on the board that has not been taken. And I feel like the Miami Dolphins should add to their defense to make that side of the ball as strong as possible.
John, he's obviously most likely listed as one of the top 3 to 4 linebackers in this draft. Is it fairly early that he's getting selected within the middle of the first round? We think he would be a guy that would be selected somewhere between 25 and 32. How do you feel about the pick?
I definitely like this pick. It may be a little early, but at this point, it's a need. And it's a position that could come in right away and help. And so, I don't think that it's necessarily a reach at this point. You're just trying to get somebody that can be a quality come in and be a quality year one starter for you. And I think that this is a great pick for Brian Flores in that defense. He's a really smart player. He's versatile. He brings a lot of versatility to that defense. He could play more than one linebacker spot. So like I said, you put him next to Jerome Baker. You already got a lot of talent on that back end, and you just continue to dominate with your defense and allow Tua to manage games on offense. So I really like this pick. Like I said, it gives Brian Flores a a lot of versatility on that defense, and it shores up that linebacker spot. Continues to allow them to play defense, which is their strength down there in Miami.
Well, definitely in love with that pick, John. I think they definitely get the linebacker that they need. Let's take it to the Washington football team and the amazing job that Ron Rivera fell out of the sky and then led this team to a playoff berth with what's the word, Heineke, the ketchup guy. So Heineke. Well, obviously Alex Smith now out of the door. Let's talk about this amazing defense and what they were able to do to really smother a lot of teams last year. Obviously, with the best pick that they had got, and the Rashawn Slater stopper. As I'm actually going to refer to him until Rashawn definitely gets drafted. Xavier Collins here could be a fairly early for another linebacker to come straight off the board. Could they use some more help at receiver with Kadarius Toney or Bateman? What do you see the Washington football team doing here?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that when you brought in Curtis Samuel, you brought him in next to Terry McLaurin. And Curtis Samuel was kind of that, gadget, can do everything receiver. And so I think that you could go Rashad Bateman here, one of the best route runners in the draft. You got Rashad Bateman to kind of add him to that offensive talent with Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin to compete with the offenses in the NFC East. So I think that's a good pick right there. Although it may be a little early, like I said, at this point, you just want to get your players that could come in and, contribute for you in year one. So I would look at David Collins right here from Tulsa, another really good linebacker spot. He did weigh in a little heavy at 270, but I think he can still move well enough to play in today's NFL. So I would look at, those are two players I would look at right now, either Zaven Collins, feels a need at linebacker from Tulsa, maybe a little early, but he still can be an impact player, or Rashad Bateman from Minnesota for the Washington football team.
Gotcha. Well, right now we're going to have Rod is going to come back in and give us the 19th pick in this NFL draft for the Washington football team. Rod, my man, take it away.
The Washington football team is changing their pick last minute. They're actually going with O-line, Tevin Jenkins. Come on, guys. We all know the way you win a football game is in the trenches. Defensively, they're already stacked. They already got offensive weapons in McLaren, Curtis Samuel, Sims Jr., running back Gibsons, and McKissick. And they got Chase Young, who's a stud. But you need protection offensively. Think about it. You got Fitzpatrick now and Kirk Heineke. Those guys need protection. You already got the offensive weapons. The defense is set. But that offensive line was kind of inconsistent, and it kind of showed more in the playoffs. So why not get a play that's powerful, but sometimes it can be too overpowerful, in Tevin Jenkins?
Well, John, they're already scary on the defensive line. Now they kind of get scary on the offensive line in Tevin Jenkins, a guy that can really be a mauler for especially in a run game that I think that the Washington football team wish they had made more plays in than they get in the passing game. How do you feel about this pick?
I definitely think this is a great pick. You look at a team that already dominates in the trenches on the defensive side. And so you continue to bolster that offensive line and try to dominate teams on the offensive side as well. So I think this is a great pick, not a sexy pick, but a pick that you may look, 5 to 6 years down the road and say, I'm glad that we took an offensive lineman in the first round. So if he comes in and contributes, I think this is a really good pick for them. They could have went a lot of ways, but you can never go wrong with getting a solid offensive lineman that could protect your quarterback and allow you to make plays on offense.
Let's take things to pick 20. The Chicago Bears are on the clock. Look, for me, it's got to be wide receiver here. I really think that they need somebody right across from Allen Robinson. Again, Rashad Bateman being at this pick will probably be really good. Kadarius Toney, I could really like him at this pick as well. When you look at the Chicago team that now has Andy Dalton at the quarterback position, obviously we know they have a solidified running game. The defense is still there, though it doesn't hurt for them to go for a corner. Maybe a Asante Samuel Jr. if this isn't too high. Maybe the other corner out of Georgia if this isn't too high. How do you feel about Chicago at this pick?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like they should have moved up and got a quarterback. No, but since they
quarterback in the SOS, my God, quarterback gone now.
Yeah, but I think that this is a place maybe right here for Greg Newsome. They definitely they lost Kyle Fuller in the offseason, had to get rid of him for some cap relief. And so you replace him with the area kid, Northwestern, close to Chicago, who they've probably seen a lot. Greg Newsome put him at that cornerback spot. Or you talked about receivers. I know that Matt Nagy, he likes to be really multiple in his offense. He comes from Kansas City. And so why not get a Kansas City type mold of receiver? And I really like Kadarius Toney. I think that he, struggled with drops and concentration. But when you see what he can do after the catch and his ability to create separation and just, make home run game changing plays, I think that that's something that they've been lacking for a long time in Chicago. So I'm going to go Kadarius Toney here or Greg Newsome. But I would really favor Kadarius Toney right here as just a game breaker and come in and kind of have the type of impact that Devin Hester did when he was drafted for Chicago. Just come in and, make those type of game breaking plays in the Windy City that we haven't seen for a long time.
Well, we certainly love speed demons, and I have a feeling that Dez Ewell, when he comes on and he gives his 20th pick, that he loves speed demons too. Let's go ahead and take it to him right now, Dez Ewell. Who do the Chicago Bears take at the 20th pick?
The 20th pick, Chicago Bears are going to take Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida. Reason being, one, like you said, you do have Andy Dalton at QB now, so you want to get that ball out as fast as possible. And he is a very good, quick, gadget type player that you can kind of put all over the field, express it in the slot, get it out real quick, let him go to work. Also, the Bears already showed that they had interest in receiver by going after Kenny Galladay in free agency and missing. You know what I mean? But besides Allen Robinson, there is no other consistency at the Bears, at the wide receiver position in Chicago, as well as the only person that's signed past this year is Allen Robinson and Ridley. So at this point, you might as well go receiver, go get Kadarius Toney. Like I said, there is a little bit of consistency issue with the catching, but that could be worked out. That will be worked out. Like I said, those home run plays, you kind of said Devin Hester. I think back when him coming from Florida, kind of similar, not comparing him to Percy Harvin, but in the way that he can change the game very quickly, the way Percy Harvin did. That's what Chicago needs, somebody that can really help them offensively, give Allen Robinson a little bit of help, and get their quarterback play some help as well, since, like you said, they weren't able to trade up to QB like they really need to do.
Well, look, hopefully Matt Nagy can coach drops. If he can, then they're going to get a really good receiver like Kadarius Toney. Obviously, you already got your guy that can pretty much do everything in Allen Robinson. Get you a speed guy that can really open up the defense. I think Kadarius Toney can definitely do a lot of that. The Bears have to find a way, John, to put up more than 10 points a game. What do you say?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I love the pick with Kadarius Toney. You have Allen Robinson, who's on the franchise tag. You really don't have any consistent options. Anthony Miller, Riley Ridley outside of that. You just get a game breaker, a game changer on offense. Like I said, Matt Nagy, he comes from, that Andy Reid coaching tree. You've seen what they've been able to do with Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman. And I don't know if he has the straight line speed that those do, but we saw like when he was able to get the ball in his hands at Florida, he made a lot of crazy plays. And I think he was largely overshadowed by Kyle Pitts and the freakish nature of what he was doing at tight end. But Kadarius Toney made a lot of plays. I saw one highlight where he literally bounced off of 4 different people and took like a screen to the house. I mean, it was crazy. So I think you get him in that offense, you can find a lot of different ways to get the ball in his hands, and you just let him do the rest. He's an instant game changer from day one, not only on offense, but on special teams as well.
Gotcha. Well, we're at the test, John. Indianapolis Colts are our final pick of day 2. When I look at this team that does a lot of things well, but can still do a lot of things even better, perhaps they continue to bolster that defense side of the ball. We're talking about guys that's out there, Levi, Jason Owe. Again, Asante Samuel Jr. is still there at corner. Let me look at my list here. Rashad Bateman at receiver, guys that if they want that pick of the litter, we're kind of at the back end of the draft. So at this point, you're pretty much drafting guys that aren't legit first round picks, but you can still get really good value. What do you see as this Indianapolis Colts team that now has Carson Wentz at quarterback?
This is another easy pick for me, and I'm going to continue to sound like a broken record. I did for Micah Parsons. This pick right here, this is an Indianapolis Colts team that, was already dominant in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. They're pretty stacked. They don't have a lot of holes. So why not swing for the fences? Go get Jalen Phillips. Once again, the best pure pass rusher in this draft. I know the medicals are concerning, but the Indianapolis Colts can afford to swing and miss. If he doesn't come in and the medicals don't check out, or he isn't the player that you expected, you already have a loaded roster. And if he is, then you're adding the top pass rusher in the draft to that team. They're going to wreak havoc not only in the AFC South for years to come, but in the AFC. And they could be the team that knocks the Chiefs off that pedestal. So you swing for the fences right here, get Jalen Phillips, and potentially get a dominant pass rusher at number 21 in the draft, which would be a steal if the medicals check out. Go get Jalen Phillips.
Aside from defense, you like Frank Reich and Carson Wentz to knock off Patty Mac and Cheese? Is that what you're saying?
Hey, potentially, if we see 2017 Carson Wentz, I know that may be a reach at this point. But like I said, we saw what they were able to do last year with Phillip Rivers, and I think most of us are taking Carson Wentz over Phillip Rivers. So, like I said, this team is loaded, offensive line. They have 3 good running backs. The defense, they have skill everywhere. They have talent everywhere. So, like I said, swing for the fences. Go get he would be a top 10 pick if the medicals checked out. He would be a top 10 pick easy. At 21, it's a steal if it checks out. Go get him right now. Put him on that D line next to DeForest Buckner. And if he turns into the player that he was at Miami and continues to stay healthy, this will be, we'll talk about this for years to come as the pick of the draft.
Well, you love this guy at the 21st pick, but the question is that man think that he is also the guy? Abdul, no better person to end this day 2 for us. Give us the 21st pick in the NFL draft of the Indianapolis Colts.
The 21st pick of the 2021 draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Jalen Phillips out of Miami, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. For the simple fact, whatever happened to the days where the Colts had Robert Mathis on one side, Dwight Freeney on the other side? The Colts have forgotten where they came from, okay? And since they forgot where they came from, that is why they have been losing, okay? So yes, they had one hell of a season last year. I can admit that they made it to the playoffs, okay? But it wasn't the usual Colts we usually see. The Colts are a team that we see get deep in the playoffs. Part of the reason they haven't been getting that deep is because of that defense. So you got to get Phillips. If he clears pass rush, he has to clear waivers, obviously make sure the kid's well taken care of. And I got this kid doing great things in Indianapolis, just like my man John said.
Yeah, so I think that once again, I said Jalen Phillips, but I think that that's a great pick. Like I said, he could come in and this is a team that did a lot of great things. Are you there, Tony? Let me know.
Go ahead, John. I got you.
Okay, yeah. So like I said, this is a team, that was top 10 in rushing. I think they were top 10 in defense pretty much the whole season. So this is a team that's loaded. They're really well coached on the offensive side and the defensive side. We'll see what Carson Wentz does. He'll be the key to how far they can go in the playoffs. But like I said, there's just really not a lot of, high-end prospects on the board at this point. The Colts really don't have any major needs. So you get potentially a top 10 pick if he was healthy, Jalen Phillips. And I think if he turns out to be the player that a lot of people think he can be, then this, like I said, we'll be talking about this as the steal of the first round and the pick of the draft. You go get a potential superstar in Jalen Phillips, and you dominate the AFC for as long as possible.
Well, I think it's a great pick, John. Obviously, I trust your football mindset to know that Jalen Phillips can definitely be the guy for this team. Before we bring everybody in and talk about how they thought this draft process went, obviously, John, you are one of the people who will be selecting picks tomorrow as we go into our day 3. But tell me, what did you love today, and what was you not so keen on?
I definitely think what I love today, I love that the Indianapolis Colts were able to get Jalen Phillips at 21. Like I said, obviously I'm higher on him than a lot of people, but I think that's the potential steal of the first round. I also like Michael Parsons. Talk about another steal. The Las Vegas Raiders getting him all the way down at 17, a player that's going to come in and do a lot of things for them right away, be an impact player right away. And I think I said, my man, that man Dooley, Abdul, my least favorite pick of the top 10 would probably have to be Jalen Waddle to the Minnesota Vikings. I love Jalen Waddle. I think he's an amazing player. I talked about Kadarius Toney. He's a game changer in that same way. More explosive, faster, all of that than Kadarius Toney. He's a real game changer, the fastest player in the draft, but it's just not what Minnesota needed at that point. So I really love the Michael Parsons and Jalen Phillips picks. I probably would have waited on Jalen.
And just for all those cats that I was
well, let's. Well, I hate Michael Parsons fell as low as he did, but hey, I'm glad it happened when it actually happened. Now, let's take a second. Let's bring the whole crew in from this draft night to get thoughts. Guys, did your picks get taken? Did something get stolen? Did y'all think everything fell as it should have? Diz, I'm gonna start with you, and then everybody else can take it from there. How did you feel about the draft night?
So mine fell actually kind of the way I thought it would fall. Nobody took anything from me. I think a lot of surprises come in that first round. I mean, the yesterday's draft that affected more of this, because I don't see Farley making as far down as he did when I picked him at I believe 16, and I also see like that comes with Carolina picking at 8. I see them drafting the corner, not an offensive tackle. Because they need that help, especially with only Dante Jackson being there. Troy Pryor really struggled last year as a rookie. You know, he showed flashes, but he's not going to be a starter for sure not. So I see them doing that. And there's a couple other picks earlier, but that's where I really see the cornerback market really being different than what we're doing now, because I believe Carolina is taking the corner at 8 and not offensive tackle, unless Sewell's there, which he won't be.
Fellas, anybody else? How do y'all feel?
Oh, absolutely. I loved my draft, except I was thrown a curveball. I had Tucker instead of Waddle. So how my man John's over there getting on me, but I had no choice. I was going to put Tucker there in Minnesota to protect Kirk Cousins' backside. Unfortunately, my man over there, my man Jamar, took the pick away from me. So I had no choice but to improvise. Okay. So that is why, John, I went for Waddle in Minnesota. Okay. Which still isn't that bad of a pick, by the way. Okay.
It's not. It's not, Abdul. It's not.
You know, we did our best pass catchers in the draft segment, and I said Jalen Waddle. I'm really high on him. I think, given the right coaching situation, a lot of people have said he can have a Tyreek Hill type impact. That may be a lot. But he could come in right away and do a lot of good things. Like I said, he has the one thing that every receiver in this draft doesn't have that he has, and that's 4.2 speed. So, I love Jalen Waddle, just not for Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings.
Rod, Jamar, how y'all feel?
I like basically all of my picks except for the Pats pick, the Patriots pick. I believe in Cam. I really do believe that Cam is going to have a Pro Bowl year. So I didn't want to pick Mac Jones at first because I wanted to go O-line with Christian Dorshaw and possibly Vera Tucker. But I forgot who chose them. But I was out of luck. So I just had to go with my third option, Mac Jones.
Tony, I think people forget that Cam is actually going to get a full offseason this year, too. He's getting the full offseason. He's getting, hopefully no COVID situation as well. Because you forget, before the COVID hit him, he was really dominating for those first 3 games. And then, we all saw Edelman drop a game-winning touchdown against Seattle that Cam put right on the money in the end zone. You know what I mean? So 3 good games, COVID hits, then he struggles. Again, he'll get the full offseason. He understands the Patriot way, or I'll say at least the Belichick way at this point. Cam's going to be a lot more comfortable. Now, do I think he's going to be a quarterback for the next 5 years? No. So I think Mac Jones still might get picked as let's let him sit 2 or 3 years. But I think Cam is more than just a bridge QB. At least he will be after this season.
Gotcha, Jamar.
Yeah, man, I think this is a year you might need to trade back for certain positions. I saw a lot of things. We saw Michael Parsons, saw a couple other individuals fall back. There's going to be a lot of teams like the Patriots that are going to be wanting to trade up. Like, I think I did reach a little bit for Tucker, but I feel like it was the right pick. I feel like that was really what they needed. I'm not that big on Michael Parsons. I think it was a steal later in the draft, but I'm really not that big on him for what he brings to the table. That's just me personally. So I think it's going to be a great draft to see how these trades really fall over.
Well, that is day 2, everyone. Obviously, our esteemed broadcasters here have made their picks, and we'll be sure to go into day 3. And we got some heavy hitters on that one as well with John, Trey, Anthony, Darian. Those 4 guys are definitely going to make it. John, see, you can't say anything about it right now, but how you feel going into tomorrow? I got a feeling like some of your people might have got chosen today.
No, definitely, but I think when you look at some of the teams later in the draft, these are the teams that were playoff teams and have more talented rosters and maybe 1 or 2 players away. So although I think it's harder because some of the players you may have wanted to take or some of the players that you like or have studied more have been taken, I think it may be a little easier in that regard to make picks because you could say, oh, Green Bay maybe be 1 receiver or something away, or kind of when you're looking at Tampa Bay, they're really picking as a luxury pick because they don't have any holes. So I think when you get later in the draft and you have these teams with better rosters, it's kind of easier to fill in and plug and play what they need because they're kind of only a piece or two away.
Gotcha. Well, we certainly look forward to our final day tomorrow. Dez and myself will be hosting that event. Again, there will be John, Anthony, Trey, and Darren will be making the picks for that. It is the new wave of sports that is sweeping the nation, where we're not just accurate, but we are all spot on. Please be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, drop us a like. Be sure to hit that notification bell, get notified of everything that we are doing. Check out these guys' personal shows. My Point Exactly, SOS Discussions, SOS Nation. Check my guy Dez, frequent check-in here, doing his thing out there in the wonderful world of ESPN. But it's always great to have him on. Again, guys, it's Spot on Sports. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Me and Dez will be back. See you guys next time.